everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most shocking turning points of the entire Ukraine-Russia war, a moment many analysts have warned about, but few believed would actually happen this fast. Russia's backbone in this conflict is finally cracking, and the consequences are unfolding in real time. What began as a war meant to expand Putin's influence has now become the very thing dragging his regime into deeper instability, economic collapse, and military humiliation. The backfire is no longer a prediction, it's happening right now, and the world is watching. From the very beginning, Putin believed he could overpower Ukraine quickly, counting on superior numbers, heavy armor, and a blitz-style strategy. But nearly 3 years later, the opposite has happened. Ukraine has not only held its ground, but has managed to strike deep into Russian territory, destroy key military assets, and expose weaknesses inside the Russian military machine that were hidden for decades. Russia expected unity, strength, and international fear. Instead, the war has triggered global backlash, sanctions, brain drain, internal rebellion, and crushing battlefield losses. One of the biggest signs that Russia's back is breaking is the unprecedented strain on its military industry. Factories are running 24/7 and still failing to replace the lost equipment. Russia has already lost thousands of tanks, armored vehicles, and aircraft, not just damaged, but completely destroyed. The attempt to rebuild these losses has forced the Kremlin to reopen old Soviet warehouses filled with decades-old machinery. Videos and satellite images show ancient T-55 and T-62 tanks being dusted off and pushed into battlefields where they stand no chance against modern Western-supplied Ukrainian weapons. It's a desperate move, and it signals a severe depletion of Russia's once feared military strength. But the biggest backfire may be the manpower crisis. At the start of the war, Russia assumed it could rely on contract soldiers and volunteers. That illusion collapsed quickly. The Kremlin then launched a massive mobilization that triggered panic across the nation. Millions of Russians fled the country, unwilling to fight a war they didn't believe in. Streets filled with protests, draft offices were set on fire, and thousands of families were torn apart. Now, reports indicate that Russia is quietly preparing for yet another wave of mobilization because casualties are higher than Putin's government ever admits. The war meant to strengthen Russia has instead emptied its cities, drained its talent pool, and fueled public anger that refuses to die. Ukraine's ability to strike deep into Russian territories has been another devastating blow. Oil depots, military factories, command centers, and even strategic air bases hundreds of kilometers from the front line have been hit. Each strike weakens Russia's ability to continue the war. These attacks are symbolic and psychological, showing Russians that the battlefield is no longer somewhere far away. Putin's promise of protection looks increasingly hollow as explosions occur inside Russia's borders with alarming frequency. And while the military strain grows, the economic collapse is happening simultaneously. Sanctions that were expected to merely inconvenience Russia have instead dismantled entire sectors of its economy. Major global companies have left. Supply chains have been disrupted. Russia is now relying heavily on countries like China and Iran, not out of strategic partnership, but out of necessity. The ruble has been in freefall multiple times, inflation is haunting ordinary citizens, and the government is burning through reserves far faster than it can replace them. Even energy exports, once Russia's most powerful leverage over Europe, have declined as the EU moves away from Russian oil and gas. The country that once used energy as a threat now struggles to maintain its own revenue. Inside Russia, the cracks are turning into fractures. Wealthy elites who once supported Putin have grown increasingly uneasy as their fortunes shrink and international access disappears. Regional governors are losing patience as the Kremlin demands more resources and manpower, while providing little in return. The Wagner rebellion months earlier revealed just how fragile Putin's grip on power truly is. That moment was a wake-up call not just for Russia, but for the world. The system built around Putin is far less stable than it appears. Ukraine's resilience is also destroying Russia's international strategy. Putin hoped this war would intimidate NATO and weaken Western unity. Instead, the opposite happened. NATO expanded. Western nations supplied massive military aid. Countries that once remained neutral now openly criticize Russia. Putin's attempt to divide the world created stronger alliances than ever before. Even nations traditionally friendly with Russia are now worried about being associated with a failing war. And while Russia continues to lose territory in key areas, its attempts to compensate with missile and drone strikes have backfired as well. Ukraine has built one of the most advanced air defense networks in Europe, intercepting a high percentage of incoming threats. Meanwhile, Russia burns through costly missiles it struggles to replace. Each failed strike is a reminder of dwindling firepower. Perhaps the most damaging backfire is the psychological shift happening both inside and outside Russia. For decades, Putin relied on projecting an image of strength, a leader who never loses, never backs down, never shows weakness. But now the world is seeing something entirely different. Every retreat, every destroyed warship, every abandoned tank, and every Ukrainian breakthrough exposes the myth of Russian invincibility. For many Russians, the illusion they grew up with is collapsing. For Ukraine, each Russian mistake strengthens morale. And for the international community, every failure reinforces the belief that supporting Ukraine is not only morally right, but strategically effective. What makes this moment so historic is that Putin's war, once framed as a fight to restore Russia's greatness, has now become the very force accelerating its decline. The cost is enormous, economically, militarily, socially, and politically. Russia is bleeding resources, losing global influence, and facing internal discontent at levels not seen in decades. Even if the war ended tomorrow, the damage done to Russia's reputation, economy, and military would take generations to repair. As we move forward, the world is watching to see whether the Kremlin can hold itself together or whether the pressure will cause a complete political collapse. One thing is certain: the war that was supposed to secure Putin's legacy is now threatening to destroy it. And with Ukraine pushing harder, Russia weakening further, and global support shifting firmly toward Kiev, the backfire is only becoming more intense. This is a pivotal moment in modern history. Russia's back is breaking under the weight of its own choices, and the consequences will shape not only the future of Ukraine, but the future of Russia itself. The dominoes have already started to fall. The only question left is how far they will go.